Hi, I'm Patrick Nugent with IICLE. I am honored to have our great friend Patrick Morris with us today, who's a shareholder at Johnson & Bell. We're going to talk a little bit about, I know we're going to talk a little about the litigations and the reforms and the new rules that have come across from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Patrick Morris.
Thanks. Pretty much everybody has heard of the DoddFrank reforms that came about in response to a lot of activities on Wall Street, and those need no additional amplification. But the thought is, and it's true, that the housing market crisis really is what gave rise to the DoddFrank Act and the regulations that we now see. But I think the perception that the housing market crisis was rooted in some of our local banks is probably not complete and probably not accurate. The new laws are designed to implement a number of things, provisions to improve home loan underwriting and curb predatory lending. Some are good, but some are imposing new and procedures, costs, system upgrades, and changes that will result in increased costs, not just to the banks, but eventually to consumers. So let me just highlight them a little bit. In January of 2013, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau issued 8 final rules concerning mortgages pursuant to the DoddFrank Act. And in perspective, the new rules require some good changes, but also require some other things. Let me talk about what I think are some of the good changes. 1, creditors are required to make a reasonable good faith determination of a consumer's ability to repay. They also establish an escrow accounts for higher priced mortgage loans to make sure that the money is there. They impose new rules on lenders for home ownership counseling. They create more policies for mortgage loan servicing. They mandate that free copies of home appraisals be given to borrowers. They require full interior appraisals for higher risk mortgage loans. And they impose restrictions on how much loan originators can be compensated. But as I mentioned, in perspective, most banks generally didn't make mortgage loans with the characteristics that led to the mortgage crisis. The teaser rates, the lack of appropriate documentation, the prepayment penalties are very high or unlimited reset payments or interest rates. But nonetheless, most banks now find that they're subject to increased scrutiny and increased cost of compliance. The regulator, the CFPB, is creating a database for those infractions, not only to keep close watch on compliance with the regulations, and so it'll be used by the government to track those infractions and for enforcement, but the database is also being watched by others, by plaintiffs' lawyers called class action lawyers, who I expect to be mining the CFPB database to try to piece together more class actions. The class actions such as those where the consumers, the members of the class, get $2.25, and the attorneys get millions of dollars in fees. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this regulation shakes out, how many of those costs are passed on to the consumers, and how many of these class action plaintiff lawyers decide to pursue banks and others subject to those kinds of regulations.
So that's pretty amazing. You know, you and I were talking just a little bit earlier about, this is great, by the way, so this is all implementation as of December 2013.
In part, some of it's already been in effect, but most of it's going to be rolled out and enforced in 2014.
Right. Thank you so much, Patrick, for your time and your efforts on our behalf.